This is Rick Rozz, ex-Death and Massacre, now in Gods of Death, and you're listening to Agoraphobic News.
Hey man, how are you?
Doing good yourself?
Fine too. Are you in New York right now or?
No, I live in Florida.
Can we start with your collaboration with Chuck Schuldiner? I mean, when did you meet him for the first time?
Well, me and Cam Lee had Mantas going already, and then I had met Chuck at a party in late 1982 at a
Mhm.
backyard party, and we just hit it off. Had a lot of the same musical interests, and as far as like older metal, and one thing led to another, and we just started jamming in his garage.
Mhm.
Put Mantas together, and then reformed under Death for a few years, and then Chuck went his own way to San Francisco, recorded Scream Bloody Gore with Chris Ryford,
Yeah, yeah.
and then moved back to Florida, and which I had found out about. Where I was already in Massacre, and then I left Massacre to join back with Chuck in Death, and I brought along the bass player and the drummer with me.
Mhm. And then you guys toured with that lineup, or?
Yeah, we went on tour. That was '86. We went on tour in '87. Um, Scream Bloody Gore tour. We did the Scream Bloody Gore tour with Chuck,
Mhm.
and then and Chuck and I went on to write the music for the Leprosy album, and then we did the Leprosy album, and then did some tours, and then I was let go.
Yeah, yeah. And in 1984, you guys released Death by Metal demo. So
Correct.
how important was that demo?
Um, we were just recording stuff on the jam box.
Mhm.
Is all we were doing. We had never been in a studio or anything like that, so I still have the same jam box. But yeah, so we would just put it outside the garage and record those things, and then it just became, Chuck was very into the tape trading thing. So
Uh-huh.
that's how that all began. It basically started just trading our stuff for other bands, checking out bands, this and that and the other, and so it was just something 16-year-old kids did. We didn't think anything
Yeah.
of it, to be honest with you.
And do you consider that demo like the first death metal release, or?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I never even used to say that. You know what I mean? Because Possessed was around, even though the everything was. It was about the same time. I think Possessed and Death came out around the same time. You had the East Coast and the West Coast. So
Yeah. So was Chuck influenced by Possessed's demo death metal, or?
um, I really don't know. That I know we were all fans of the Possessed demo, but we were already
Mhm.
writing stuff before I heard that stuff. I mean, the stuff that we were writing in Mantis was more like a Venom, like a rock and roll with a heavier vocal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So it really wasn't, the way the definition of death metal.
Uh-huh.
It's changed a lot over the past 30 years for sure. So
And what was like the vision for Mantas as a band at the time?
it was
Did-
just there was just some three high school dropouts, basically. You know what I mean? Just jamming in the garage 7 days. So that's what we did 7 days a week in Chuck's garage. So there really
yeah.
was no. We were forming a band. You know,
Hmm.
trying to be as original as possible with influences, of course. And
Yeah. And why did you guys change the name from Mantis to Death?
well, we split up for like 2 weeks,
Hmm.
and then we reformed. And Chuck wanted to call the band Death, and me and Cam were cool with that, so we went with it. And Cam did the logo, the original Death logo. That's all Cam Lee. The Mantis logo is Cam Lee. First Massacre logos was Cam Lee, so he never got any
Didn't know
credit.
that. Didn't know that, man.
Yeah, that's
And
actually some guy, I can't remember his name, put out an artwork book of death metal logos, and finally Cam got some actual credit for it. You know what I mean? Because
yeah,
he,
I didn't
he
know.
he was he was never credited for that.
Awesome, awesome. And does the name Death have something to do with Evil Dead movie? I mean,
That I don't know. You'd have to ask Chuck about that. I think it was pretty, which you can't. But I think it just was going along with the whole death metal image, death metal, and he just said, hey, well, what better name than call the band Death, playing death metal? So even though the music evolved and got a little, to me, less death metal, but what's death metal? It's all metal. It's just all metal's metal,
yeah,
from Judas Priest to the most blackest metal band. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's all metal, man. It's all metal.
Yeah, but I was listening to Infernal Death demo, I think, or Reign of Terror, and it sounded like as if it's like less death metal than death by metal. I mean,
Yeah,
it's kind of like speed metal riffs, A
right,
string and bam bam bam.
right.
So
Speed
what
metal.
happened there?
I don't know. That's what came out. That's what we had. That's the songs that we had. So it's always had a speed metal thing. It's always been a speed death thing with a lot of rock. What's the way I write? It's more I Slayer did it for me. You know what I mean? So when I first
Hmm.
heard Show No Mercy, I wanted to play fast. You know,
Yeah, awesome.
Kill 'Em All was a very good record, and it was fast. And but when Show No Mercy came out, I was like, well, that's what I want to do. So it's more of a speed metal with death metal vocals. So it's like a speed
Yeah,
death
yeah.
thing. It's not. I mean, people saying, the first death metal band out of Florida or the first death metal demo and this that. If that's what they want to call it, it was just categorized. You know what I mean? Black metal then was Hellhammer, Bathory, and Venom.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? And that was like the Hellhammer was really really primitive and slow. So it's kind of like Doom almost with vomiting
Yeah.
vocals. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes. Awesome.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, and was Chuck inspired by horror movies for Scream Bloody Gore records?
Probably, but Cam was more. We were all horror movie buffs. Cam was the big horror movie buff, and pretty much brought all the horror movie kind of, the Mantis stuff and the Death stuff. Cam wrote 80%, 90% of the lyrics. So, and was singing 80, 90% of the songs while playing drums.
Awesome, man. Didn't know that.
So yeah, Cam was. Not going to say that Chuck wasn't into Evil Dead and all that. Of course he was, but Cam kind of initially brought that to the table, and I'm going to say Chuck fed off of that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And did his own thing. So
And was Cam behind the lyrics from Scream Bloody Gore album, or?
he did write. I mean, Evil Dead is mine and Cam's song. So,
Mhm.
but Cam, I mean, obviously Chuck rewrote the lyrics.
Aha, aha.
So yeah,
Awesome, man.
that and Infernal Death. That's another garage song that. So
Yeah, yeah.
Cam also wrote the lyrics too, but they were rewritten by Chuck, and he put it on the record.
Yeah, awesome. And there is a photo of you, Chuck, and Cam Lee with blood on your faces. I mean, fake
Yeah,
blood.
right. Yeah, corn syrup and red dye. Yeah.
I mean, how important was that image for to
I,
demo band like that at the
I don't
time?
know. I have no idea. We were just trying different stuff. It was ketchup at first. You know what I mean? I have some Polaroid pictures, so we were spitting ketchup, and we all had makeup on and kind of corpse paint, and Chuck had braces, and yeah, it was. We
He
were
had
just
braces.
yeah. He had a big grin on, so it's like a big metal yeah, and really short curly hair. But we were all Kiss fans as well, so that's probably where the blood came
Aha,
from.
aha.
But the Slayer did the blood thing on a promo picture, and it was all feeding off of the whole thing and trying to bring it in. But we never did that on stage. Oh no, I take that back. We did spit blood on stage. So
Yeah, and I mean, I read somewhere like that you guys were sending pictures of dead rats to repulsion guys. I mean, genocide.
I never did that. Chuck might have. Chuck, Chuck was friends with those guys. I never even knew them.
Hmm.
They were actually in Death. I think the two Repulsion guys were in, Scott and Matt. They were in Death for a little while. So that's when I
Yeah,
was.
yeah,
Yeah. So that's Chuck's doing. I'm sure I don't never did anything like that. I love animals. So
yeah. And when did you leave death for the first time? I mean,
uh,
was it in '85 or
it
'84?
was the demo days. like I said, we split up once for like 2 weeks and went from Mantas to Death, and then we were
Mm-hmm.
together for, I think we did like 3 or 4 demos, and then Chuck moved to well, before he moved to Frisco, he was jamming with Scott and Matt from Repulsion. I think Cam was still in the band too, and then that didn't work out. And then he moved to Frisco, so probably 85, and then I immediately was in Massacre. Probably within a month, Cam called me from Tampa,
Mm-hmm.
and hey, he was already in the band and asked me if I wanted to join, and I said sure. So I moved out to Tampa for a year and gave that the best shot. And then I found that Chuck was coming back to Florida,
Mm-hmm.
and that Chris Reifert wasn't coming with him because Chris was like 16 and still in high school, and you know what I mean.
Awesome, man.
So he didn't want to move to Florida.
Yeah.
So when I heard Chuck was coming back, it was I actually found out the night Massacre was we were opening for Overkill and Megadeth.
Wow, man, I didn't know that. Awesome.
And we were there. There was actually a flyer. Cam made the flyer, and then we got to the show, and we didn't get to play. We came to show up to play in this band called, I don't know if you heard of them, remember a band called the Necros?
No,
Yeah,
I didn't.
anyway, their management got them on the gig, so we didn't get to play.
Mm-hmm.
So that night, I in my mind, I was kind of over it. You know, we weren't doing anything. It was a big letdown. We didn't get to play that show. And then some kid out of nowhere, I would never recognize his face. I don't know his name. He just walked up to me and he goes, "Hey, I heard Chuck's coming back into town."
Awesome.
So it was almost Christmas. So I went to Chuck's house like the next day, and he freaked out a little bit, and he was like had a uneasy look to him. So I was like, "Hey, man, I got some business to talk to you about. If you're interested in talking, call me tomorrow. Call me tomorrow, and we'll get together." So he called me. We got together, and then I called the other two guys and I said, "Hey, you're in Death."
Awesome.
No, they got a free ride out of it. No.
Yeah.
And then they go on tour without the guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that was like the
So
first,
amazing.
The first tour with Death. I mean, the first show with Death. That lineup was in Milwaukee Metal Fest, right?
Correct. The very first Milwaukee Metal Fest. Yeah, it was Trouble, King Diamond, a bunch of great bands.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And can you recall that? I mean, do you have some memory from that show?
Oh yeah, it was a great show. I remember the whole thing. Watched all the bands. I'm a fan of music. You know what I mean? So I enjoyed seeing all those bands. Nuclear Assault was there. Zoetrope was there from Chicago. Yeah, it was good stuff. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. And then what happened next? I mean, after the tour, U.S. tour, what?
Well, we did the Ultimate Revenge 2 video.
Uh-huh.
We were writing songs for Spiritual Healing, and then I was in
You
New
mean
Jersey.
the Leprosy?
No, Leprosy. Oh, okay. I thought we were talking about the Scream Bloody Gore tour. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Sorry. But no, so then we wrote the Leprosy record and recorded the Leprosy record, and then did the tours, and then did the Ultimate Revenge thing, and then we were writing for Spiritual Healing, and then I was let go. So that was like late 89, mid 89, something like that.
Yeah. And continue, please.
No, go ahead.
I think that Chuck wasn't, happy with the Ultimate Revenge video, because I read somewhere that he hated the whole thing. I mean, because it was kind of unprofessional. Was that the case with you, or?
I had fun.
Awesome.
And I never thought anything of unprofessional. I don't know. I don't understand what he means unprofessional. It was pretty pro done, but
I don't know. I literally read some interview like 2 days ago where Chuck hated all that video. I don't know why, but maybe because of some mistakes live, or something like that.
Yeah, it happens. Mistakes happen. I mean, I hit some bad notes on the video, so.
Yeah. And when you compare like
sour, so hey.
Continue, please.
No, go ahead.
When you compare like Scream Bloody Gore to Leprosy, did the band evolve? I mean,
I think it evolved a little bit from Scream Bloody Gore because you had two people writing the music instead of just one. So it's Scream Bloody Gore. You could kind of tell that one person wrote all the music, even though two of the songs were mine and I never got credit for them. But
And what are these two songs?
Infernal Death and Evil Dead.
Yeah.
And riffs from Mutilation, Sacrificial, and I have riffs. I have the 3 or 4 parts, maybe even 5 parts on Spiritual Healing as well.
Wow, didn't know that, man. And what about Leprosy? What are the songs that like you wrote?
I wrote Primitive Ways by myself. Chuck wrote the title track Leprosy and pulled the plug by himself. So the other 5 songs, I think that's for these 5, 6, 7. Yeah, the other 5 songs we co-wrote together.
Yeah, awesome, man. And you know, there is like a lot of tremolo violence around on that record. Was that your trademark? I mean, with
I,
the
I, I just thought it was different from everything else. I mean, I was a fan of, from KK Downing to Uli Roth, to Eddie Van Halen, to Kerry King, Jeff Hanneman, and I just was like, I'm more of a blues player. I'm not like a shredder, but I can play that stuff. I just never sat down and practiced how to learn to play fast leads. I really had no interest in doing it. Everybody was doing it. So I was like, okay, so this guy's sweeping and he's doing this scale, this and that. So I just felt like being just more of a frenzied kind of controlled frenzy, because all the whammy is in key and it's in time. It just isn't.
yeah.
It's not memorable. It's not something that you can, a beautiful solo or a really good solo that sticks in your head like a riff or a good vocal line. You can't do that with the whammy solo. So I understand that, but it was just controlled frenzy, and I thought the two kind of worked good because you had a really, shredding guy and then you had some guy that was just, kind of making fun of the shredder. but not really. That wasn't my thought in my head. I just came to mind right now. I'm 50 years old, so but then I wasn't thinking about it. I just did what I did, and he didn't like that. You know what I mean? He wanted another shredder in the band, so I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy, and I respect that. That's fine. I'll be the first to admit. You know what I mean? It's his band. He wanted to go and do what he did. Who am I to say no? You can't do that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but I think that your solos are pretty memorable. You know, when I hear that whammy bar, I mean, I'm totally blown away by it. So it's kind of, it's maybe you're not a shredder, but you made a point to that record, because the
Yeah.
solos are so catchy.
A lot of the shredders rip on me, but that's all right, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's okay. Doesn't
And
bother me.
then what happened when you were kicked out of the band? What were you doing at the time? Were you focusing on a Massacre or?
I didn't do anything for a while. I sold all my equipment.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't do anything for a while after that, and then of course we ended up reforming Massacre with Joe Cangelosi from Whiplash and a good friend of mine, Butch Gonzalez,
Mm-hmm.
really really kick-ass funk bass player, and we did the Second Coming demo,
Mm-hmm.
and then during those rehearsals, we were doing demos and playing them for Earache, and then in between that's when Terry and those other 2 guys took Death to Europe without
Mm-hmm.
Chuck,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they called me from Europe, and they were like, "Hey, we're on tour without Chuck right now," and I was like, "What?"
I
So
mean, that's crazy.
I didn't really understand that at all, and when I found out who was doing what in the band, I was like, "Wow." And they were like, "Yeah, he called halfway through and wanted to come out, and we said no." And I was like, "Wow." Anyway, long story short, they knew they weren't going to be in Death anymore, so they were ready. They wanted to reform Massacre.
Yeah, yeah.
So I talked to the label. Of course, the label was ecstatic about those 2 guys getting back in the band. So for the first time in my life, I had to tell Butch and Joey that we're going to continue Massacre, but without them. But they were cool and understanding about it, and I'm still friends with the both of them to this day. So then they came back and we reformed Massacre.
And what was like Chuck's reaction when he heard that Massacre is still around? I mean, reformed.
I have no idea. He didn't care.
Yeah.
Nah, that's a lot.
And
That was the farthest thing from his mind. You know, he wanted to get a good band together. So
yeah, of course. And did you tour with Massacre? I mean,
yeah, after we
wh-
did the From Beyond record, we did a European tour. I think we did another Milwaukee Metal Fest. Um, yeah, we did quite a bit. I think we did like 3 tours, 3 or 4 tours, 2 U.S. and 2 European. No festivals or anything. That was before all the festivals were going on, I believe. Um,
yeah. And
yeah,
there.
and then that fell apart. You know what I mean? Cam didn't want to work with the other 2 guys anymore. Then we did the Promise record in '96 with Cyrus Peters on drums and Pete Cison on bass. And then we didn't do anything with that. We didn't do any shows, nothing. Then it just completely fell apart after that.
Too bad.
Yeah, it
And
happens.
I mean, did you like Human Record when it came out? Because you know, From Beyond and Human came out in 1981. So
Well, you have to think the human music was written for that year.
mhm,
It was written the year it came out, or maybe the year before.
mhm,
From Beyond, all the songs From Beyond were written in 1985, 1984, 85, and 86, and they didn't come out till 91.
mhm.
So
Too
you have to
bad.
think of the time frame of the From Beyond record when those songs were written.
Aha,
And
aha.
you know what I mean? They're 2 different records. I mean, the Human record's a great record. You know what I mean? Very good players. You know what I mean? Chuck got what he wanted, but it was never stayed the same. It was always different people. Just like, you know, so it's just whatever.
So like the album was in the closet for like 5 years. You
Yeah,
know.
the only reason why Massacre got we weren't shopping for a record deal. We weren't talking to labels or anything. David Vincent called me from Morbid Angel when he was still in the early Morbid Angel with him.
Mhm,
He called me and said that Digby Pearson from Earache Records was a big fan of Massacre and he wanted to put a record out. He called me
mhm.
and told me, and I was like, "Oh, really? Okay." So we did. We
Awesome.
we got together and rehearsed all the old songs in 1990, rehashed them all and got them all tight, and then went and recorded them and released it in 91. So they were 84, 85, and 86, because 87 I was back in Death.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So yeah, 84, 85, and 86, all those songs were written for
And
From.
are you happy with the album cover done by Ed Repka?
It's fine. I'm not picky about stuff like that. You know, it worked. For some reason, we got too pinkish purple. I mean, I like purple. Purple's cool. I love purple. But it's more pink. It's pink and this and that. But whatever. I don't care. It's an album cover. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I wasn't. I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I'm not too worried about that unless it really looks like crap. You know what I mean? So it worked for what it was, and that's it.
Yeah, and is it true that Gene Hoglan was supposed to play in Massacre?
I did ask him to play on the From Beyond record. And then
Hmm.
I found out he was playing in Death on the new Death record, and then I changed my mind. I was like, you know, there's no reason to have him come play on the Massacre record when he's gonna be playing on the Death record, and he'll be touring, so he's gonna be busy. So
Yeah, yeah.
it was just a question I asked him. He said, yeah, $5,000. So that's all. And just never followed up on it because, you know, he was busy in Death. He would have had no time for us.
Yeah, yeah, of
You know what
course.
I mean? So it would have been. I mean, I love Gene Hoglan. He's a great guy, a monster drummer, and so it would have been freaking killer, but I had to think logically, you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. And then you guys in 1992 released the Inhuman Condition EP. So was that like the leftovers of the?
No, no, not really. We wrote those songs a little later on. Terry wrote a couple of things, and they weren't ready to be recorded.
Mhm.
That was a little rushed. Um, the studio experience, the production's crap. Excuse me. We were kind of like guinea pigs for a new board that Morse Sound got in, and there was no
Mhm.
name. This one of the guys that worked around, I don't even know who he is. It wasn't one of the main guys, you know. It wasn't the Morse brothers, or it wasn't Scott Burns or anything like that for that. So it was
Yeah.
we got thrown in to do this EP, a couple of songs, and Yeah, it was, but it's there. We did it. We put it out. I think we should have focused on the songs a little bit more and shortened things, and some things just went on too long. But hey, so I didn't complain about it then. I was just going along with it. You know what I mean? It sounded cool to me. I just wanted to have a good time, record some music, and that's that.
Yeah, and there's a cover of Venom's Warheads.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Did you choose it, or
Excuse me?
did you choose that song? I mean, was that your idea to cover it?
I think it was mine and Cam's idea, but we were talking to Earache about it, about covering it, and Digby said, "Well, how about I fly Cronus out, and Cronus will come and sing on it."
Uh-huh.
So I was like, "All right." So I picked Cronus up at the airport. He stayed at my house, and we went to Tampa, and he did the vocals and did the bass, and yeah, we had a good time. It was great hanging out with Cronus. I was cooking for Cronus.
Awesome, man. Didn't know that. And then you guys released Promise album
Right.
in 1986. What was the deal with that album? I mean,
Me and Cam wrote those songs in his apartment. And he just was on a different, obviously a different page lyrically, which it didn't bother me a bit. I never made fun of him, what he was singing about. And but yeah, that's just the way that worked out. And then we got Cyrus and Pete to play on it, and that was that was probably the worst studio experience ever.
why?
Not with the band, but with the studio owner. Just took a lot of money from us, took a lot of money from these other two guys that he got to come down from California, and we got a half-assed product, and it wasn't even finished. And he made like $20,000 and $25,000 off the other guys, so he made $55,000 in a month throwing these big parties and the studio. And I'd come walking in, and there'd be all these 20 people in there. I don't know who the hell they are, and freaking all kinds of stuff everywhere. And yeah, I never started any stuff with the guy until the last. He never saw me when I walked in. I'd be walking in and go, "Wow, what's this going on?" So I just pop in and say, "Oh, really?" Then I leave and I go call everybody. I'm like, "Oh, he's living it up on our money, man, throwing big parties over there at the studio, and we weren't even invited."
Too bad, man.
It's all good. It happens. You know what I mean? I'm not crying about it.
Yeah. And then you guys released Back from Beyond in 2014, right?
Yeah.
Are you happy with that record?
Excuse me. Yeah, I got to do it with my best friend, and still plays drums with me. So Mike Mazzanetto. So it was good. I had a good time. Everybody did their job well, and I think the record's a little long. I should have taken the advice from a couple of people, and we should have not put so many songs on there. But I thought the more songs, the better. But anyway, but overall, yeah, it was just songs that me and Mike wrote. You know what I mean? Just the two of us. And then Terry contacted me and put it back together. And once again, I fell for that crap. So, yeah.
Yeah. And there's a song Honor the Fallen dedicated to Jeff Hanneman.
Yeah, we already had the song written, and me and Mike would call it the Slayer song because it kind of had like some notes in there that kind of reminded me of something Slayer would have done. And we always called it the Slayer song. So then when Jeff passed, we were like, "Oh shit, man, let's throw a little dedication on there to him." It was a big influence to me. So
yeah, of course. I mean, too bad. And is there some project that you're involved with right now?
yeah, we have a project called Gods of Death.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me something about it?
It's me and Cam. We recorded 2 songs. The first 2 songs we recorded since '96, so 20-something years. It's up on YouTube. It's just a rough mix, and yeah, it's cool. It's just I'll send it to you via email. You can check it out.
Yeah, awesome, man. And what happened with Death by Metal documentary? I mean,
I don't know.
I mean, I saw like there was a premiere or something like that, but I couldn't find CD or DVD, whatever.
Yeah,
So,
they're being really I guess really cautious about that thing getting out and being bootlegged, I guess. But I didn't go to the premiere. I really wasn't really invited. I guess I was kind of invited, but I didn't go.
uh-huh. So you were involved
Yeah,
in the
I don't know how much of my stuff's going to be in there
hmm
because a lot of stuff happened after I did that. So, but yeah, we did a big long thing on there. So,
Uh-huh. I mean, too bad it's not even out there. I think. I mean, there were like 3 premieres or something like that, in UK or in Canada, but there is no DVD.
no, not
So
yet.
yeah, too bad.
I have no
Ma-
idea what they're going to do with that.
Yeah, too bad. And do you have something to say to the listeners, to your fans? Any last words?
Keep your eyes and ears open for Gods of Death in 2018.
Awesome,
And
man.
thanks for all the support, and thank you and your show.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you,
Appreciate
man.
it.
Much appreciated. Very flattering. I appreciate your time, taking the time to do this with me.
Yeah. Take care, man.
You too.